All right, who wants to do a live show? How's how is everybody doing? I apologize for being a few minutes late. I was actually having a conversation with a young woman who I'm hoping is going to be a guest on an upcoming episode of Unfound. But the only time I could squeeze her in for a talk was at 8 o'clock Eastern time, and she had a lot to say, understandably. And I talked to her for as long as I could. And then I said, I got to go. I have to do the live show. But we had a good conversation. And I'm sure I will be talking to her again very soon. Good to see all of you. It has been a week of extremes since you saw me last Wednesday. Little did I know what was going to transpire since you saw me last week. Yeah, I know some of you, many of you do follow me on regular Facebook, Unfound stuff Facebook, not the group, not the page, but just my private Facebook page for Edward Denzel, where I don't talk really much about the work that I do. Once in a while I do. But some of you know that I have been fighting a tooth problem since, when it became obvious to me was on Saturday night, and I'll get to the Judas Priest concert here in a moment. But here's what went down. And by the way, hello everyone. If you're watching this video, please give it a thumbs up on whatever device you are using. That helps us with the YouTube algorithms. And please subscribe to this YouTube channel. Please hit the little bell button for when we start a video like this one or upload a video file, you will be alerted to it. And we do quite a bit of that. In fact, for this Friday's episode, I will be doing a YouTube video for it as a companion because we talk about a few different locations. Hello, Charlotte, Karen, CR, Linda. Hello, Kathy. Cherie, I was texting with Cherie earlier today, and that was fun. Jasmine, Charlotte, In Bloom. Hello to you. In Bloom, that reminds me of, doesn't Nirvana have a song called In Bloom, In Bloom? Maybe, I think they do. Hello, Fishing, how are you? Linda, I am right here. Maybe you need to refresh your browser, Linda. But I am right here, although I did get started a little late. So here's what went down with the tooth situation. I have to admit that on Saturday morning when I woke up, didn't quite feel like myself. I had slept, but it felt like I didn't sleep. I didn't remember waking up during the night or anything like that, but I knew that I had the Judas Priest coming concert that night. The concert wasn't going to start in Orlando until like 10 to 10 or something. So I wanted to sleep in a little bit, do some work, had an interview this coming Friday's interview on Saturday because I had to leave here at around 3:30 to go pick my buddy Dana up for us to go over to Orlando. And we ended up getting over there real early anyway. But as soon as I woke up on Saturday, just knew something wasn't right. You know how you, before like you're getting sick, you kind of feel it anyway. You don't necessarily feel sick. You just kind of feel a little run down. You don't have any pains or aches or anything. That's how I felt on Saturday. I don't know if my buddy Dana even realized it. But went there, and I have a root canal that I got done in the summer of 2000, 21 years ago. I was a spring chicken. I wasn't even 30 yet. I have a root canal done, and the story of this tooth actually goes back to 1994. Here's what happened. This is why, all of you tune in for this to find out details of Ed's life. And before we get into, and I got a lot of true crime stuff to talk about tonight, so I got to hurry through this. Back in 1994, I had just met my sister and my brothers that year. I went over to my sister's house in Canfield, Ohio, and we went to see the movie Star Trek Generations. That's how long it was ago. I went over. She's a big Star Trek fan. I'm a huge Star Trek fan. This was years before I worked at Star Trek. And she and I think even my biological mother, Suzanne, was with us, the three of us. We went to eat, and then we were going to see Star Trek Generations. This is the first movie with the Next Generation cast, Patrick Stewart, etc. We went to eat. I got dessert. I bit into a chocolate chip, and here, this tooth over here had a crack in it, and I didn't know it. I bit down, splintered the tooth. Didn't hurt. I was really worried. Oh, we're going to the movie, and here's I can still remember holding the piece of tooth in my fingers. This is 27 years ago. We go to the movies, no pain, anything. It's just not good. And so when it ended up happening is for the next 4 years, I didn't have the money, didn't have dental insurance, all of that. I ended up getting for like those 4 years before I moved to Las Vegas, like a temporary type of filling or something to go on this tooth for all those years. Never hurt me. I really don't remember it really bothering me or anything, but it was a weird situation. We move up to 2000 and it's still all messed up. I got dental insurance when I started working at Star Trek. So I said, the first thing I'm going to do is get this tooth done. And that's what I did. I got a root canal done on it. I can remember to this day sitting in the chair getting it done. And was fine. And I have fine teeth. I've had some things, done over the years, but I have really good teeth. Really good teeth. Very few problems. Although I did get a couple wisdom teeth taken out in 2006. Once again, no big deal. But I would say for the last maybe 10 years, I've been able to tell that when I sleep, once in a while, I will grind my teeth and it aggravates this root canal over here for some reason. Nothing else hurts, just this. And it'll bother me for like a day, and then it'll go away. And I think what's happening is this tooth is moving around and aggravating the gum. And I've just gotten used to it. Once again, maybe once a month or something, I've just accepted it and it goes away. When I woke up on Saturday, didn't quite feel like myself. Was the day went on, I started getting that very familiar pain over here. I thought, well, yeah, I did it again. But the thing is, we went through the concert. I dropped Dana off. I'm driving home. I got home at like 2 a.m, and the pain kept getting worse and worse, way worse than it usually ever was. Took some Advil, went to bed, got up the next day, still hurts. And in fact, for all of those of you who, are in the think tank, patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. I don't know if it was obvious during that think tank, but my mouth over here, it hurt to talk on Sunday evening. That's how bad it was. But I'm taking Advil, and I was like, I'm going to give it another day and see what happens. On Monday, the pain was even worse. And the Advil would help, but some, maybe for a couple hours. That was about it. And I was taking like two Advil. And so I started talking to people. Hey, what dentist do you, people around here, what dentist do you use? What dentist do you use? What dentist do you use? And I was convinced that I had cracked this finally. Finally, something had let go underneath the gum. And, you know, it's just bad news, big time bad news. Although it was not obvious from looking at the tooth, everything looked fine. There was no bleeding, nothing. So maybe there's an infection. What's going on? Well, I got to go see a dentist yesterday, finally at 3 o'clock. And I was convinced that, they were going to do an x-ray and it was all messed up under there. Dentist does the x-ray, shows it to me. Nothing. No problems. And so I guess the decision was made, and maybe, I don't know, being that they didn't see anything, maybe they just thought I was a big whiner. But there was nothing wrong with it. He showed me the picture, and hey, as we all know with dentists, they're always looking for work to do. But he was just straightforward. He showed me the picture up on the screen. He's like, I don't know what to tell you. It looks, he goes, if you had a crack, hold on one second. Linda Refrisha. So, so he showed me that. And so the decision was made that, there's nothing wrong with that tooth. He goes, if there was a crack in or something, it certainly would. He goes, I could do like a 3D type of thing, but everything you were explaining to me and looking at this picture just tells me that this is you grinding your teeth while you're sleeping. And it was just like an aggravation of the gum. It was just like a really, 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 really bad aggravation of the gum, much worse than what you usually do. So that was a relief. Now, there's more to the story, though. And the funny thing, here's the funny thing. While I'm in the dentist chair, all these technological advancements they have today, they can pull up Netflix on these screens. It's just, you're going in, if they're going to be working on your teeth, you can watch whatever you want while they're working on your teeth. I actually pulled up the program and showed them last week's live show. And so as I'm sitting there, I was telling them, how narcissistic am I? I come to the dentist and I put my own show on the TV. So, so they found out what I do, who I am, and everything. And that was fine. But for a while there, I'm sitting watching my live show from last Wednesday. I'm like, well, this all seems very familiar. And hello, Tiara. How are you? So what they did was they took a mold of my mouth, and I'm going to get a night guard made to protect, and see if that changes anything. Now, here is something that I realized last night. And by the way, what I'm doing right now is I'm on 600 milligrams of Advil every 6 hours. And I don't know what it was, but I'm doing 12 and 6. So it's like noon, 6, midnight, 6 in the morning, noon, 6. So I'll be taking 3 more Advil at midnight. But I took 3 Advil before I went to bed, and I rarely ever take 3 Advil. I take a couple Advil before I play disc golf, because I'm 50. I took 3 Advil before I went to bed last night. I had some of the most vivid dreams ever in my life. I mean, everything was like 4K. And it was like lucid dreaming. I mean, it was so clear. It was crazy. It was like nothing. I mean, I remember, I'm a pretty good dreamer anyway, and I remember a lot of my dreams. I do that whole, dream within a dream, like in the movie Inception. And it was better than that, or, better than that. I mean, it was so vivid. It was crazy. All sorts of colors. And I don't know if it was the Advil. I don't know what it was. But what I found out was I woke up at like 4 a.m. and my mouth was hurting. I was like, well, maybe the dentist was wrong, but I couldn't take any more drugs. So I was lying on when I woke up, I was lying on my left side. I turned over and lied on my right side, went right to sleep, woke up this morning, no pain. True story. And I think the reason for that is because when you're lying like this, the blood in your head, although there's still blood in your brain and everything, it's going to kind of go down this way, and it puts more pressure, blood pressure, on this part of your mouth. I was reading about this today. And so all it took was for me to roll over to my right side, and now the pressure's on this side, and there's less blood pressure on this side, and that made the pain go away. So, and I've not had 1 ounce of pain all day tonight. Now, granted, it like 6 this morning, I did take 3 pills, and at noon, and then 6 this evening. But this is the first day that I felt like myself since Friday. Because Saturday, I kind of fell a little out of it. Once again, I don't know if my buddy Dana could tell or not. I was doing my best to be Ed Densel. But Sunday was bad. Monday was worse. Tuesday started feeling a little better. Then finding out that I didn't crack, obviously was a relief, didn't crack anything, and feeling like I'm on the right track now. And today, once again, I felt like myself today. But I really think that it was a combination of me grinding on Friday night, just really, really, really wrenching this tooth. And this tooth does move around. Sometimes when I floss, sometimes it's easier to get between the teeth with this one. And then other times the floss won't go in the front. It won't go in the back. So it does move for sure. But this time I must have just done something that just totally ticked my gums off down here. Really, really ticked them off. But the tooth itself is fine. And I think what's happening is when you generate that blood pressure by having your head like this, it only makes that pain worse. And you go like this, and then there's less pressure, and then the pain goes away. Like I said, I got up this morning, and I really wasn't even on that much Advil, and it didn't hurt. And in fact, even when I ended up taking, I took Advil at 11:30 today, and then I didn't take a 6. At 6 o'clock, I had no pain. Even though I was due and I did take them, I had no pain over here at all. And I have no pain over there right now. Nothing. But it was miserable. I mean, like I said, on Sunday evening, it hurt to talk. That's how bad it was. So that's my tooth story. I am going to be going back on Monday to get a cleaning. I really liked the people there. I appreciate that they took me on a very short notice. I appreciate the time they took with me. It is called, by the way, they were asking me if I was going to mention the dentist on this program. I said I would. It is Dental Arts on Seminole Boulevard right here in Pinellas County. Actually, it's right down the street from where I buy my guns at Mad Dog Armory. So if you're in Pinellas County and you need a reputable dentist, I would recommend Dental Arts on Seminole Boulevard. And I appreciate, them getting me in and just being very forthright with me and everything else. I have to admit, my experience with dentists, it would not have surprised me had I gone to a certain type of dentist and the dentist would have just said, "Oh yeah, that thing got to come out. Oh yeah, there's something wrong with that. We're gonna have to do this. That would not surprise me at all, given once again my dentist experience in my life. So I'm glad that he was just very truthful with me. Showed me the picture. Said, "I don't know what to tell you. Looks fine here." Now, granted, I do have something going on with a tooth up here. It's cracked. It's like part of it is missing, but it's been like that for 2 years. And I think once again, it's from grinding my teeth while I sleep. So I'll be interested to see how this night guard works. If it's going to protect this tooth, if it's going to protect these other teeth as I get older, then I'm all for it. Not cheap, but I really don't care at this point. So that's my tooth story. And you should know, I haven't been to it. I know this is going to sound horrible. I haven't been to a dentist in 11 years. I've not been to a dentist since I moved to Florida, but I really don't have any teeth problems. In addition, I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't drink coffee. So I don't do a lot of those things that can mess up your teeth. And I floss all the time. I'm an obsessive flosser. I got that from working with showgirls back in Las Vegas, where before shows, just always flossing and brushing and everything. And I think I picked it up from them. So I think that's why I've been able to go this long, 11 years, and not have any teeth problems. I know my brothers, I don't know about my sister, but my brothers have had tooth problems, going way back. My teeth are very hard. Very, very hard. The only thing I have a problem with my teeth have like very deep valleys in them. And that's always weird. So there's my tooth story. Nobody's been commenting. I don't know if I've transfixed you or something. Nobody's commented for like 10 minutes, but I know you're out there. I see the numbers. But that's my tooth story. If anybody else wants to share any tooth stories, you can do so as we continue on here. In fact, it's kind of, let me just check. CR says we're listening. Okay, thank you, CR. For a second, I thought did my screen freeze. Thank you, CR. Thank you. So that's been my story. Once again, I want to remind everybody, give the thumbs up as you are watching this video. Even though we've not done any true crime stuff, that is my tooth story. Hopefully, this will help somebody out there with a similar problem. A lot of people were telling me before I went to the dentist yesterday, oh, that must be infected. There must be a crack. It must be an abscess. And I'm sure those things happen. But that's not my story this time. I very well easily could have been, because I was convinced that's how bad the pain was. I mean, I couldn't even think. It was just like a CR. You're in the think tank. I barely got through that think tank on Sunday evening. This part of my face was hurting so bad. Just the vibration of my vocal cords was enough to aggravate this. And now I feel great. I feel like today felt like the usual Ed Denzel, but the last 4 days, no fun. So that's my tooth story. Luckily, my issue did not get in the way. CR says you should have canceled. We would have understood. Oh no, we can't do that, CR. But I appreciate it. Charlotte, I can't stand tooth pain. Neither can I. I'm not a big pain guy. Luckily I don't get sick very often. Very, very fortunate. Once in a while I have my allergy issues, but that's not really a pain type of thing. And maybe I'll get a sore throat once in a while, but once again, I hit the chloroseptic like nobody's business. But I just don't have a lot of pain. So maybe when it does happen, it seems even worse. Very well could be. So, but it did not get in the way of Judas Priest and on Saturday night. My buddy Dana, a great guy, great hangout. It's the first time that we've, hung out. I always see him at disc golf tournaments. We talk back and forth on Facebook, etc. He's around my age. He's into the same music that I am. And I went and picked him up at a Waffle House up there in Brooksville. We went over to Orlando, did a lot of BSing about, ourselves. And we just had a great time. The concert was spectacular. Judas Priest was spectacular. Rob Halford was spectacular. The rest of the musicians were spectacular. Granted, we stood, but we weren't too far from the stage. If some of you saw the videos that I took, and that's something that I got to knock off my bucket list, and it was so good. I know they're going to be touring. If you are into heavy metal, if you are into Judas Priest, the tickets were $55. They played for an hour and 40 minutes. They played from like 9. They went on 20 minutes early, at least the way as far as I can understand. They played the whole way till about 10 after 11, constant. What a deal. $55, sign me up every time. And so if you're into them, you want to see a quality show, I think it's a show if you have kids, you could take them. There's nothing weird that was going on or anything like that. In fact, I saw a lot of kids there with their parents, and great show. I'm so happy I went. So happy I got to see them. And if you're into that music, you should see them. And it was really good to see them in the way that I did. So Dane and I had a great time. Luckily, the tooth problem really didn't kick in after that. Had it kicked in before, I don't know what I would have done. But great concert over there in Orlando. Like I said, then we drove back, dropped them off. I got back here around 2 a.m. I was thinking I would not be getting back till 3 a.m, but got back a little earlier than I expected. Still 2 a.m. And like I said, by that time, the tooth problem had really kicked in. And maybe it's because I was tired. But I'm thinking I'm on the way to this all being fixed. And I'm thinking right now, actually, about just getting my whole stuff done. Instead of thinking of it as an expense, thinking of it as an investment. I am 51 years old. I'd like to have my teeth for the rest of my life. Dentures and those things are no fun. You're best off just keeping your teeth if they are healthy. So I may get into a situation where I get something fixed, updated, or whatever on my mouth every month until, we're all back in order, and all I have to do is get them clean. Like I said, I don't have any, except for this tooth up here having a part of it missing. I just really don't have many issues, but still, who knows what can pop up, as was shown just a few days ago. That's how quickly some problem can pop up. So there you go. Disc golf. I haven't played any disc golf since last Wednesday. I would have, had I not had this tooth problem. I probably would have gone out and played on Monday, but no way. So I haven't played any disc golf since last Wednesday. So there's no stories to tell there, although I will be playing in a 1-round tournament this weekend. What are some of you saying here? Charlotte, I can't stand tooth pain. Kathy, I didn't notice anything on Sunday. Good acting. It was hurting. In fact, Kathy, if you go back and watch that video, you'll see me somewhere around like 45 minutes in. You'll hear me say, man, this tooth is really hurting. Go back. Maybe you missed it at the time, but I even said, man, this tooth is really hurting. I feel bad not noticing you were in distress. Oh, that's fine, CR. The concern is not me, but like I said, if you go back and watch that video, which you can do, is you have the link, Think Tank members. You'll see me about 45 minutes in. I was like, wow. You'll hear me state, man, my mouth is not feeling right. Fishing says, give me a strong Xanax for dentist appointment. Almost need one listening to your story. You're welcome, Fishing. Linda, Sunday was a great discussion. Please don't put us before your health, especially tooth pain. Well, that's okay. Linda. Valerie, you're allowed to be late. Shri, Arnica, it's a natural painkiller. If that happens again, you can't get to a doctor right away. It's in the homeopathic section of most drugstores, Walgreens, Walmart, CVS. Kathy says, I will rewatch. Did not hear you mention the truth. I mentioned the tooth. I usually don't miss stuff. Oh, I said it. Like I said, it seems to me it was right about 45 minutes in because it just kept getting worse, Kathy. Shri Arnica, I had people tell me about clove oil and all these things. The issue was that the pain is down inside the gum. The issue is that I could touch my gum on this side and on the inside, right where the pain was, no problem. It was not sore. It was down deep inside the gum. And that's why I thought that something was cracked, but it wasn't. I don't know. So I don't know if any topical stuff would work. But certainly Advil, even though it's like, it's just something you go buy and everything, certainly worked for a while until I got to the dentist. And that's what I'm using now, a little more than I usually use, but this is what the dentist said to do. So I'm on a regimen of 600 milligrams of Advil every 6 hours. And now I have to do that for 3 days. So that means I started yesterday. I'll have to do it the rest of today, the rest of tomorrow, and into Friday. And he goes, by that time, it should have, everything should have been calmed down. Now, the good news is I'm going back to the dentist on Monday anyway. So if there's any issues, I guess we can work those out then if that's not working. But I am going to be sleeping on my right side tonight. And I think that's going to help as well. But man, the vivid dreaming was crazy. I think I wrote on my on Facebook today. I had a dream last night. I'm telling you, it was so real that I was in the house that I grew up in Gilpin Township. I was in the room with where the piano that I played, we called it the piano room because that's where the piano was there. And I was in that room and there were like 30 people in this room, and that would be packing that room. The room's not very big. And I'm standing there and, and I'm not going to get who was there. There were most of the people were strangers that, you wonder how your mind puts that stuff together. But so a few of the people are people like I knew or in my life, but most of them were strangers. But I can remember asking them, what is the date today? And them all saying like different dates. And I was lucid enough to answer back to them, no, that's not the date. Today is September 15th, 2021. That's how lucid I was. I knew what the day was in a dream, and I could tell all of these people. Now, granted, you're just talking to yourself, but I was lucid enough to know the day and be able to correct them. It was crazy. It was so like, I can't tell you how clear it was. I'm still creeped out by it. Marta says tooth pain is one of those pains no pain med can fix. It always seems to come. I think it's, I was telling my assistant Emily, Marta, today, I think it's so bad is because it's so close to your brain that, it's a very short way. Whereas, of course, we've all had, stubbed our toe or, broken things, but that nerves takes, maybe some of that message gets lost in translation from like your foot to your brain, and you loses energy or something. But being that the tooth pain is right here, it only has that far to travel. I think that's why it hurts so much. You just can't even think. And that's the way I was on Monday. The only thing I was able to do work on Monday was listen to the interview that I did on Saturday. That's the only thing I could do. My mind was so blah, 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 blah. But it just feels so good to be back to myself. Valley says, interesting, Linda. The only time my father ever cried was his wisdom teeth. We'll never forget that. I got my wisdom teeth pulled, Valerie, back in 2006. I got one pulled and then went back a couple months later and got the other one pulled. I have to tell you, it wasn't that big of a deal. The only thing I remember about it was when I was going in to get the first one done. As I was walking into the office, David Brenner was walking out. If you remember him, he's dead now, but he was an actor, comedian, hosted the night show when Johnny Carson wouldn't be there sometimes. I'm walking in, David Brenner's walking out. I was like, I know that guy, but that's kind of like Vegas. You never know who you're going to run into. That's what I remember about getting my first tooth pulled. But Shree says, I wonder that too. How do we dream about strangers? Shree, I have no idea. I'm sure somebody's written an article about it, Shree. I've never looked into that, though. Linda, it's weird, Valerie. I have a very high tolerance for pain meds, and the only thing that helped in my mouth was the clove oil. Charlotte, Aleve makes me have strange, vivid dreams. Well, Aleve is kind of like, it sounds like the same thing. Dreams often contain things we just did or saw or are going to do. Well, I don't know, Kathy. I'm not planning to go back to my house back in Gilpin Township, Pennsylvania, but maybe. Linda, you are so lucky, Ed. My family has freakishly long roots per the oral surgeon. Valerie, oh yeah, I remember him. Did you have stitches? I did have stitches, Valerie. But the wisdom teeth, man, they knock you out. You know, knocking you out and doing that, and you're done like that. Sign me up for that every time. I wish they'd knock me out for anything when I go to the dentist. Cleanings, everything. Just knock me out. Just do it. I hate it. I really do. I hate it. So there's that. By the way, did everybody get their Powerball numbers? I got mine. 11 o'clock tonight, over 400 million. I think you might be able to retire on that. Pretty sure. Marlene says, can you name a couple other famous faces you've run into? Marlene, I ran into Mike when I was doing work over at the Bellagio for the job that I had, this printer and fax machine job from 2005 to 2009. I ran into Mike Tyson at the Bellagio. I ran into one of those poker pros. His name's Ted somebody. At one of those offices that I would go to for that job. I met Chris Angel. He came and was, remember him? He had that magic show. He came backstage to the magic show that I worked at. I met, David, what was the Partridge Family? You know, the Partridge Family, David, what's his name? I met him because he came to the Rat Pack show that I was working at. Trying to think. I met the guy, David Cassidy. Thank you, Linda. Yes, I met him. I met William Friedkin, the director of The French Connection, of course, of not Carrie, but the other movie. You know, the William Friedkin. You know William Friedkin. Hello, VDX. How are you? And welcome from Australia. Good day. David Cassidy's your cousin, Linda. That's cool. So yes, I ran into quite a few people, you know, just going here and going there in Las Vegas. But I also worked in entertainment, so that's bound to happen. I met a lot of the actors from Star Trek Voyager, Robert Picardo, the guy who played Tuvok. Did the Star Trek show for Jerry Ryan, who played Seven of Nine. She was there with one of her children. This would have been 2002 or something like that. Yeah. Want to my name's Ed VDX. Nice to meet you. Eek, David Cassidy. So those are some of the things that are going on in my private life. Disc golf, tooths, vivid dreaming, Powerball, and going to see Judas Priest this past Monday. So let's get to the other part of the program that is usually put out um, on these live shows. It took me 43 minutes to get to. I got here like 40 minutes to get into this. So let's talk about true crime news, true crime items, things that I've seen, stuff that I want to talk to you about. And once again, if you are watching this video, please give it a thumbs up. And that helps us with the YouTube algorithms. I don't know how that's relevant, VDX, but yes. Sheree, you want to take care of that, please? Let's first go to the Brenda Sika poll. Lots of possibilities here. Then the discussion group, an overwhelming number of you stated that you believe that Jim, of course, Brenda's boyfriend, killed her. Overwhelmingly. In the think tank, it was a little more mixed. That's the best way to put it. Of course, I think some of the people certainly open. I think everybody's open to the idea that Jim could have done something to her for a lot of different reasons. But, and I think the think tank people are that way as well. But when they really had to be narrowed down to one particular theory, people went in another direction, as did I. I think any disappearance like that, where there are a lot of different possibilities, a lot of different choices, they usually come down to, one specific question to kind of, part the waters and people go over here or they go over here. For example, with Tom Brown, it's a very easy question. Do you believe that Tom walked those 12 miles from his vehicle to where his remains were found, or 30% of his remains were found? If you believe that, then that certainly puts you on a path to a certain decision. If you do not believe that, then that puts you on a different path to a certain decision. There's, it's like a path. You come to a fork in the road. Some people go this way. Some people go that way. With Brenda's, I think it's, do you believe that she wrote those emails? If you believe she wrote those emails and those were from Brenda, I think that sets you off on a particular path. If you do not believe that Brenda wrote those emails, then I think that, of course, puts you on a totally different path. So I think that's mainly what that disappearance comes down to. In general, I would say if you do not believe that she wrote the emails, then somebody's pretending to be her, and there's every reason to believe that somebody murdered her, and the person who did it was pretending to be her. Makes all the sense in the world, very much like Eric Franks' disappearance. On the other hand, if you believe that she did write them, then it becomes a little murkier. She surely could have been killed for some reason after she wrote that last email in mid-August. But I think, though, it also lends the idea that she's out there somewhere doing something, her dog's dying, and we start wondering then about her frame of mind, what she's thinking, and that then can lead us maybe to something that maybe of a Crystal Morrison type of disappearance, or a Robbie Hurt type of disappearance, or maybe even a Noah Davis disappearance. So for all of you, if you think she wrote the emails, I think I can kind of guess what you're thinking. And also for those of you who think she didn't write those emails, I kind of probably know what you're thinking as well. And so that's one way I try to, and I'm sure if we looked at a lot of other disappearances, that there are a lot of different possibilities. I think they could be narrowed down to like one question. And it's not necessarily, do you think, this person was murdered or not? There's just some fact that, what do you think about this fact? And that answer probably will be able to tell me what you're necessarily thinking that your theory is. So, but I think with Brenda's, that it's one of those disappearances where there's more choices than usual. Why? because of some of the issues going on in her life, some of the choices she was making. Drugs, seems like she had an alcohol problem, might have had some mental health issues. Um, on the other hand, she's, dating this married guy and everything else. Then we have the apartment and everything else. A lot of different choices, probably as many choices regarding her disappearance as can be had in a disappearance, probably. This Friday, a little different. So that was the Brenda Sika poll. A large majority of you believe that Jim caused her disappearance. In the think tank, like I said, a little more mixed. Kathy says, Valerie says, Ed, you deserve to win the Powerball. You know what, Valerie? I agree. Kathy, I've completely changed my mind, and since my mind since scouring Brenda's Facebook. Huh. Okay, Kathy. Interesting. Marta, I do. Yeah. Julie says, I keep changing my mind still, and that's totally fine. I think that Brenda's is just one of those types of disappearances. And, even for me writing the blog, it was, tough for me, really, really looking at it. I have to admit that I think that she did write those emails, and I write about my reasoning in there. Once again, you may think something totally different for other reasons. I came to the conclusion that she really did write those emails. And so my theory goes from that. And once again, patreon.com/Unfound Podcast if you would like to support the program and get to read all of the blogs that I write for these disappearances going way back to 2017. And also, if you'd like to contribute a little bit more, you can be in the think tank where we get in depth with all of these disappearances, really analyzing a lot of the points that are brought up during the episode. Charlotte says, Brenda's case is very confusing. That's true too, Charlotte. Marta, thank you so much. What Marta has done there is contributed using the super chat button that you see, that little gray square with a $sign in the middle. And you can monetarily contribute to the program. As you know, Unfound has no advertising, and it will always be that way. So I appreciate the contribution, Marta. And if anybody else would like to contribute, you can see that little gray square with I almost said gray squirrel, gray square with the $sign in the middle. And we would deeply appreciate it. Marta, thank you once again. You're very generous. Let's move on to the next topic, which is marking your calendars. I actually spoke to Dr. Telesco yesterday. I'm not going to get into what we talked about. She called me, and it was great to get a surprise call from Dr. Telesco. We had a nice conversation, but I'm not going to get into what we discussed. But the next show with Dr. Telesco will be October 26th. So we got a little ways to go, like a month and a half. And she and I have ironed out that we'll be discussing a specific disappearance. It has not been picked out yet. I'll be doing that. And so that is a Thursday, of course. And that will be a week before I appear at Nova Southeastern University to speak there to the students. I'm really looking forward to that. Dr. Telesco has told me they have reserved 150 seat auditorium. 150 seats. Boy, if we even come close to getting that filled, I will feel really, really, really good about it. But I'm just, me, I'm just going to go down there and do my best. I'm sure we'll have a nice showing, and it'll be great to be able to speak in front of these students. I'm sure they're going to have a lot of questions and things, which I'll be ready to answer. That's October 26th, though, is the show, the next show. November 4th is when I will be speaking on campus there. I don't know what the rules are there. So, um, this is probably something that I'll be able to talk more about as we get closer. But, I've even gotten some already questions. Well, if you're going to, I'm going to be speaking up in Louisiana too. Well, some listeners, if I were to show up, can I watch? Can I go into the class? Not sure. I don't know yet. I'm going to have to work out the professor that I'm coordinating this with up in Louisiana. I will have to ask her before October 12th comes around. So I just don't know. I can understand all of you wanting to show up, maybe meet me, see what I have to say. And I deeply, deeply appreciate it. I'm flattered, totally flattered. But it's not my building. It's not my school. It's not my class. It's not. So I can't tell you what is permitted and what is not permitted. Okay. But I will have that figured out before October 12th. I'm guessing probably the answer is probably going to be no. That they would just you start getting people just, coming off the street and everything. I don't know what kind of precedent that sets. So I will just have to ask her, and I would just, we will all just have to live with whatever decision that is. Okay. Whatever she says is what is going to go. All right. I can assure you that. If she says, we don't want to do that, then I'm going to urge all of you not to show up. Okay. I just want you to know that. And that's just the way it'll have to be. And likewise, Nova Southeastern. If the question is is the same thing. I even have one of my assistants, Natasha, who lives down in that area. But if they say, you know what, we don't want strangers coming in, and then the answer is no. Then just can't show up. And I will tell you, don't show up. That's the way it goes. They make the rules, and I'm going to follow them 100%. All right, I'm not going to make any, not going to try to convince them otherwise. I'm not going to. I guess what I'm saying is, I'm not going to say to them, well, come on, can I have it? I'm not going to do that. If they say no, the answer is no. Although I will have my brother with me, but he will be there for filming purposes only, at least for the one in Louisiana. So once again, the one in Louisiana will be October 12th, which is a Tuesday. So I got about a month. Let's move on. Once again, yes, Cherie's posting that for October. Yes, the Fischler College YouTube channel. Please subscribe to that channel. They do a lot of other good things besides having me on there. So please check that channel out with Dr. Telesco. Get their subscription rate up on their channel. Please subscribe to it. Please like their videos. Please watch them. Please, 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 please. Let's move on. Next thing, Suzanne says you will be amazing. Well, I'm going to try to be amazing, Suzanne. Coffee. Hello, Coffee. How are you? You could have your own meetup if you wanted. I could, Coffee. The issue once again is arranging it and finding some place to do that. And I have to be honest, I'm not planning on being in Louisiana or down in South Florida that long. To get to Louisiana is to where I'm going to be speaking is like a 14-hour drive. My brother and I will be driving that the day before. We'll have I'll be speaking to 2 classes. And, he has work to get back to, and just a lot of logistical things that once again, you have to find a place, and I don't know how many people are going to show up, and, it's a lot of logistics. I have to admit, I don't have time to do it. And I just don't really know if we'll have the time while we're there. Cause I think my brother, I'm speaking on the Tuesday. I think he has to be back to work on Wednesday. So after I'm done, I think we're driving right back home. So, whereas South Florida is a lot closer, Maybe we'll be able to do something there. Maybe, but I can't make any promises on that. I even know, like, for that meetup that happened in Amarillo in July of 2019 that I went to, that Charmin put together. It's not easy to do. You have to find a place, and how big are the room, and all these different things. It's not just like, well, let's just meet up at the local Starbucks. So yeah. Coffee says, I'm taking a vacation to Florida soon. Well, I congratulate your choice on that. Linda says, any chance these will be recorded for us to watch? Linda, they are certainly going to be recorded. And Dr. Telesco's even talked about live streaming the one in November. So we're not really sure what I'm going to do. I'm not sure what we're going to do regarding that, Linda. All I know is I'm going to get them recorded for my purposes. What those schools will be doing is up to them. I will have my brother with me. Like I said, at least in Louisiana, I'll bring the tripod and probably just use my phone and video the whole thing. And I want to have it for obvious purposes. Cherie says, we had a meetup in Houston too. I forgot about that, Cherie. Thank you for reminding me. When was that, Cherie? How long ago was that? You have to let me know. Coffee says, not to see you. Okay, Coffee, you got me on that one. Well, it's a good choice not to see you. I can understand. You know what, Coffee? There are plenty of other better things to see in Florida than myself. So I get it. Thank you, Marta. You're very welcome. Next thing I want to talk about is something as crazy has been going on. As I told you 2 weeks ago and then last week, Coffee says I'm not a creepy stalker. I would never think that, Coffee. But I hope whatever you're going to be doing in Florida, I hope you have a great time. And it's a great time to come to Florida too, because it's not as hot. Jill says, this is great for Q procrastinator. I don't know what that means, Jill. As I told you a couple weeks ago, Amazon featured Unfound on its hidden gems section last week. So it went from, I think, a Friday to a Friday. So September 3rd to September 10th. So it ended last Friday when Brenda Sica's episode came out. As you know, I don't keep track of numbers. I don't go to iTunes to see if Unfound's in the top 200. I don't care. And other places that do all these rankings and things, I don't keep track of them. However, on Podomatic, when the page that I use the most on there for Unfound has the stats there. So they're right in front of my face. I cannot avoid them. And all of you should know that something certainly has gone on with the numbers since last week. 2 weeks ago, because I wanted to see, well, I'm going to be on Hidden Gems, and there it was last week. Does that have any effect on anything at all? You should know. 2 weeks ago, Unfound set a record for the most downloads in a week. So 5 years in, we're still setting records. Last week, so that would be from the third, if an episode starts on that Friday, the 3rd, which would have been the 5th anniversary episode, to the next Friday when Brenda Sica's episode came out, that set a new record for downloads, according to Podomatic. And currently, as we are 5 days into this week, from Friday to Friday, or 6 days, however you look at it, this week is going to set a new record for downloads. Crazy. And in fact, if you can believe this, I can't believe this myself. And you should know, I don't do anything regarding this. I know that there are programs out there, podcasts out there, video channels out there, anything. They buy likes, they buy shares, they buy views, they buy downloads, they buy views, they buy. You can go to all sorts of places to buy manufactured fame on the internet. I get them all the time in the Instagram account. People, messages, I can get you 5,000 subscribers to your Instagram account for $15. Don't do it. Never done that. But if you can believe this, for the same amount of time from last Friday, so September 10th to today, September 15th, so only 5 days, I checked the same time period from a year ago, September 10th to September 15th. The downloads are 3 times as much compared to this time last year. 3 times as many. Crazy. I'm guessing it's because of the attention that Unfound got in the hidden gems section. I'm guessing that makes the most sense to me, because really we haven't changed anything. It's the same program every week. I do the same amount of marketing and tweeting and all of those things. But 3 times the amount of last year at this time. I'm not going to give you what exactly the numbers are. I realize there are all sorts of podcasts out there that get way more attention than Unfound does, and I'm totally fine with it. But it's a crazy number considering what it was last year to now. And so to think that, 5 years in, I mean, most podcasts don't even get to 5 years. To think that 5 years in, we're setting new download records is crazy. And I thank you to Podomatic, that I think was was who arranged for Unfound to be on the Hidden Gems. I think that they had everything to do with that. I cannot thank them enough. Thank you to Amazon for going along with that and featuring it right there on their main podcast page, down there right in the Hidden Gems section. Podcasts maybe that should be getting a lot more attention than they do, and it's right there. It's just one of those things. Crazy. Like I said, I don't like giving the numbers out and everything, but it's a crazy number. I did let my assistants know exactly what the numbers are, but I figured there would be some bump up from getting, on Amazon and just being featured in a particular special section. Of course, that's going to happen. Could have never guessed it was going to be this much. 3 times over this time last year. Crazy. And once again, non-manufactured, no advertising. Of course, as you all know, Unfound is not part of some podcasting company. It's as grassroots as you can get. It's as independent as you can get. And I really don't know how many of the podcasts that are on Amazon that get featured like that are like that. I think a lot of them are part of Wondery or one of these other, what I would call podcasting companies. As you know, Unfound is not. So it's crazy. No. So I just thought all of you would want to know that. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you, Jasmine. Thank you, Jill. Jill says, I tell all my clients who are looking for podcasts to listen to yours and that magical 48 hours episode. Magical is one word for it, Jill. Cherie, after Tom Brown, before Kem Raymer. Wow, way back in 2018. Over 3 years ago, Cherie. Is that when that was? Wow. Okay. Jill, I do have a question. What is your most downloaded episode since you were looking? I really haven't looked for that, Jill. I will tell you from YouTube, before we went to the new channel, The most watched video was Flight 370. As far as the most downloaded podcast, I would have to say that it's Tom Brown, which, of course, I don't think is going to surprise anybody. But I'm just looking at total downloads, no matter what episode it was and everything. But I'm pretty sure that Tom Brown is number one. Maybe Flight 370 is also high up there now after all this time. But I'm pretty sure that Tom Brown is number one. You know, it's one of those things that, Jill, that older episodes have the advantage because they've been out for a long time, so more people find them and everything. So you have 4 years or whatever to amount downloads. Whereas the advantage that new episodes have is the program is more popular now. And I think people who are just finding Unfound for the first time, like those people, that have found it because of maybe Amazon within the last couple weeks, I think they're going to naturally just check out the most recent ones first, and then maybe at some point go back to the beginning, which then helps the numbers of the newer ones. And so I think in the end, Joe, it kind of evens out. I think you'd think the old episodes have the advantage, but it really tends to even out one way or the other. But I think Tom Brown's number one. Cherie, really awesome accomplishment. Thank you. Yeah, it's we. It takes, as I continue to say, it takes all of us, myself, and the assistants to do all of these things that Unfound does. Spleen says, missed the last hour. Well, you know what, Spleen? You can go back and watch it later. Thank you, Charlotte. Cherie says, I think 370 is actually number one. It used to be last time I looked. It may be on YouTube, Cherie, for sure. At least it was on the old Unfound YouTube channel. I don't know where it is on the new YouTube channel, but certainly on the old one. I mean, it had a crazy, at least for Unfound numbers, it had a crazy amount of views before we moved all the files to the new channel. I think it might have been 200,000 views or something. Some crazy number. Once again, for us. So certainly that for the YouTube. I don't know just about podcast episodes, though, just the audio short. You may be right. I could easily go check that. All right, let's move on to, want to get to some news items. In fact, I'm going to be doing a few more news items than I usually do, because there is certainly a lot going on in things that Unfound has not covered. That's what I consider news. True crime stuff that Unfound has not covered. It may cover somewhere down the road, but is not yet covered to this point. That's what I call news. Whereas the items part of this live show are things that have to do with Unfound episodes, disappearances that we've covered, if there's updates, any upcoming speaking stuff, newsletter, and all that. So the news section, I know a lot of people asked me, was I going to talk about the disappearance of Gabby Petito, is her last name, Petito. And this is a really big national news story. I think it's getting a lot of news because here she was with her fiance. Every time I say that word, I think of that Seinfeld episode. She was on this trip with going across the United States in this van RV type of vehicle. And then suddenly her fiance ends up back, coincidentally, just a couple hours south of me. Which way is south? That way. In Northport, which I've played disc golf at Port Charlotte. It's right there. And here she's missing. And the fiance is lawyered up. His family doesn't want him talking to the media, doesn't want him talking to the police. And what is going on here? And they were doing, I guess, some Instagramming, YouTubing, and doing this series as they started up in New York and were working their way across the United States. But it seems like something went on, something happened after they were at Grand Teton Park. And before maybe they got to Moab, Utah. That's how you say that place, by the way, Moab. I've been to Moab, Utah, by the way. And something went on there, and suddenly this guy is driving home, and she is nowhere to be found, and he didn't call in a missing persons report or anything else. And it certainly looks bad for him. Certainly. This is not, could there be a worse set of circumstances when two people are together and then suddenly one is at home and the other one's missing, and the one who's still around is lawyering up and doesn't want to say. I mean, even Jeff Wandich, when he survived being out in the Gulf of Mexico with those three other young men, at least he talked to the Coast Guard. At least he talked to the police. He gave a story. I'm not saying we have to believe that story, but at least he didn't shy away or anything. And the story still sounds crazy to me, but he didn't lawyer up or anything. Whereas this guy has. So what are we supposed to think of this? From a disappearance point of view, I can see why everybody is very suspicious of the guy. And you know what? You may very well be right. The tough part is to add on top of that, there is this story that they were somewhere and Gabby and this guy were in a fight or, in a verbal something going on. Maybe it was physical too. And some third party noticed it, called the cops. The cops show up. It's like, hey, what's going on here? And no charges were filed or anything. But so we know that they were not getting along during this trip. There's proof of that. And that certainly looks bad. The other problem is that if he did do something to Gabby, then driving the whole way from the western United States back down to South Florida, if he did something to her and disposed of her, she could be anywhere. She doesn't necessarily have to be in Utah or Wyoming. She could be in any state between there and here. What would it be? Colorado, Oklahoma, Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and anywhere, in any part of Florida. Horrible. Horrible. On the other hand, I will tell you about something that happened in my own life. I went on a vacation to another country with a girlfriend that I had at the time. Not going to mention her name. Not going to do that. It was a long time ago. And we got there. Once again, it's in another country, a country that is not connected to the United States. And we got into an argument when we got there. I don't even remember what it was about. And she stormed off. We're in a foreign country. I'm in a hotel room. She storms off. And she didn't come back in like 10 minutes or 20 minutes. And, it was night. And I would say we were not like in the safest part of town either. And so what are you supposed to do? She ended up coming back. She stormed off. I thought that she would be back in like 10 minutes. And it took a while. I think now that I'm 51 I think that she wanted me to like go after her, trying to create some sort of drama or something. And needless to say that I knew as soon as we got back to the United States, this relationship was going to end. But, so I had a situation in my life where a girlfriend stormed off in a strange place. And I am sure had she not come back, had something happened to her, say she went missing, that I would have been the main suspect. No doubt in my mind. Who else are you going to look at? And I'd have to tell him, yeah, she and I got in an argument. Yeah, that's true. And she stormed off. I didn't see what direction she went. And, my story might seem to be a little thin. Granted, luckily, she did come back. And actually, after that, the vacation still ended up being okay, but I still said, this is not going to work. She just, no, not going to work. But, and she is still alive to this day. I did not do anything to her. The fight was not physical in any way. It was just, she was, in my opinion, acting irrational. So I know kind of what that's like to be on a trip. Something happens. And maybe if things had gone a little differently, I could have been seen as being the cause of her disappearance, So, the issue though is that that's one thing. It's a totally another thing to drive back across the United States and not tell anybody that this woman stormed off. But they're going to have to look at things like phone pings, as things that we usually talk about on Unfound. And maybe it very well may be later this month that this is the Unfound Now episode that, this is the topic of the next Unfound Now. I've not made a decision on that yet. But this sounds to me like something, if he did something to her, that is very much like what we think in a lot of situations like this. When we think about Julie Early or Ellen Sloan or Marion Hurley or Angela Green and Rosemary Rapp, that these are situations where a couple has gotten into a fight and nobody was planning to kill anybody, but something happened. And this kind of sounds like that. Now, what that means is that there probably are mistakes somewhere. There are clues somewhere. And the big difference, I guess, between all of those disappearances I just named in this one is these two were in a strange area. They had never been there before. And because of that, this guy would not be able to control as much as he would be able to control had this happened at their apartment, at their home, someplace like that. In addition, there's this van that I'm sure they'll get their hands on or eventually if they haven't already. And they will start looking into all of this. There's going to be social media tracking. There's going to be phone ping tracking. And I'm hoping that this will lead somewhere. Once again, if he did something to her. But I think that we also have to be thinking about the idea that they had a fight. She stormed off. She says, don't worry about me. I have money. I have credit cards. I'm going to fly back to Florida or New York or wherever. And he goes, she says, I'm not riding another mile with you. I'm getting the hell out of here. And he says, okay, fine. I'm going to drive back. If that's what you're going to do, I'm going to drive back to Florida. See ya. I mean, all it takes is a credit card and ID to fly. And he could have believed her. I'm not trying to be his defense attorney, but could have happened. You can only file a report for somebody who is missing if you know that person is actually missing. And what I would say is if he comes up with a story like that, I'm not trying, once again, not trying to be his defense attorney, but we've covered 225 disappearances. We've covered 225 disappearances. And we know how many sound like this one. And we know how many guys get away with crazy stories. Jeff Green's story. Crazy. Rosemary Rapp's husband's story. Crazy. Not believable. They're still walking around free men. So if he wants to say something like, well, I saw her walking off, and she had her purse, she had her credit card, she had her ID. She says that she wasn't going to ride another mile with me, and she was going to get a Uber and get a flight from Utah back to Florida or to New York or wherever she wanted to go, and their engagement was off and everything. What am I supposed to do? She's not getting to get in the van with me, so what am I doing? What am I doing here? I might as well just drive home. If she's going to go back to her home, I'm going to go back to my home. May work. That's certainly not as a crazy story as the one Jeff Green has gotten away with for the last couple of years. So I think you should be prepared for this. It very well may be that, unfortunately, her remains are found tomorrow. There's signs of foul play and everything else. Certainly possible. But being that you're watching this live show and you know I'm all about education, I would urge you to be somewhat doubtful that this is going to be solved quickly. Very well may be. But we've learned, if we've learned anything over the last 5 years, is that these disappearances that seem so straightforward sometimes aren't solved for years, if ever. So I just want to prepare you for that. Just want to prepare you. And I'll get to the other part of this that Cherie told me about in a second. I just want to see what some of you are saying. But Jill says, but likely you would have said something. The dude saw it's not so much. Well, you're right, Jill. I guess the big difference is that I was in a foreign country, and I know that she went off, and I don't remember what she took, but I don't know if it would have been enough information to fly back to the United States. But had she said that, hey, Ed, I'm out of here. All right, you're acting, she thinks I'm acting crazy. I'm out of here. And she takes her purse, and she has her passport, and she has her ID, and she has her credit card. If she says, I'm flying back to the United States, is it crazy for me to think that? No. She's an adult. She knows how to get to the airport. She has money to pay to fly back to the United States. She could still go missing. So once again, these are one of these problems that we run into with disappearances that maybe the general public doesn't appreciate. Spleen, yes, it can totally happen. That one actress who drowned, it was alone with her 4-year-old son sometime last year, I think. If she'd have been with a boyfriend, he'd probably be a suspect. I think that's a good point. Shree says, I think your situation is very, very different. You didn't take her vehicle and drive 2,000 miles and never tell anyone. He was in Florida for 10 days and never told anyone she was missing. I agree with you, Cherie. But once again, what if she had her purse, she had a card, she had her ID, and she told him, you know what? I'm flying back. Don't talk to me. You've pissed me off. Don't call me anything. I'm flying back to New York. Don't call me. Don't email me. I'm out of here. And once again, I know it's easy to look back now, but we've all been in situations where we've broken up with people and not talked to them for a long time, and we didn't know what the heck they were doing. In fact, the reason we didn't know is because we didn't want to know. This is what makes disappearances so difficult. Okay? This is what makes them so difficult. In addition, we know how many crazy stories seem to work. They're going to leave a hard time pinning it on him. It's the worst of circumstances, but the best legal advice. Lawyer up and don't say anything. I mean, if you're a piece of crap trying to get away. Red Code, if I ever wanted to disappear for any reason, my choice would be Eastern Indonesia or Papua New Guinea. They're so undeveloped that it's easy to go to a remote area, wander off, and get a new idea. And it may be Red Code. I don't know enough about those places to know. Tiara, I read earlier that they are looking into text messages from her that the family think were from the boyfriend, and it also been reported that both of them had mental health issues. Yeah, I hope she is found. I've never covered the Chiron Horman case, Red Code, mainly because we don't cover a lot of missing children on the program. I guess that would be a good example of any of why we don't. Cherie says, I can see all of that, except it's her van, and she cried to law enforcement a few days before that he was going to leave her without a ride. How ironic. That's exactly what he did, in my opinion, if we knew what happened. Right, Cherie. I guess what I would say is, yeah, he was going to leave her without a ride. That doesn't mean he was going to kill her. It's Red Code. It's another one of those cases where it looks bad from the outside, but the circumstances aren't that unusual. That's a good point. That's a good way to put it, Red Code. The circumstances are not that unusual. The part that's unusual is that somebody went missing. Um, um, okay, now we're got some red code. Got some back and forth about Tyron. Is Terry guilty? Is she not guilty? I don't know enough about the disappearance to say. Could have happened that way, but he now knows everyone in the country is looking for her, and he has said no word. Uh-huh. Quack, just impersonating a duck tonight. Quack, quack. The circumstances are actually pretty unusual. Most people at least talk to the FBI, maybe. I guess the issue is that if he did do something to her, how stupid he is to continue to drive her home. Drive her van home. I don't know. So I don't know. But I think my main point is I would not put any money on the odds of whether this is going to be solved quickly or not. Just don't do that. Don't do that. Not that there's any gambling out there like that. But if you're talking to other people at your work regarding this particular disappearance and they say, oh, it's so obvious that he did it, you say, yeah, but. And then you start naming off these disappearances that I've just done that we've covered on Unfound that are even maybe more obvious than in this one. And those guys are still walking around free men. Their girlfriends, wives have not been found and maybe never will be found. So moving on. So that one more thing about these two women. I guess they were a couple. They were a lesbian couple. They were murdered in the area of Moab around the same time. Could it be that this guy, killed them? Did Gabby and he both kill them or something? Because these women were shot to death in that same area. I don't know. Maybe could be. Maybe this guy just totally lost it. Just totally. If they did have mental health issues, he totally went off the deep end. And, were they carrying a gun? I don't know. Were Gabby and this guy, did they have a gun as they were traveling across the United States? I don't know. Maybe they were. And if they can attach what kind of gun was used to murder these women and the kind of gun that they were carrying on them, and it's both 9mm or 40 caliber or 22 or whatever it is, then maybe this fiance of Gabby Petito is actually a serial killer. And if so, I think we may need to be looking at him maybe for other things, other unsolved murders out there. I will tell you, I looked his name up to find his criminal record. He has no criminal record. So I don't know. I would say that him killing Gabby, in the heat of passion during some argument is certainly different. And it even is different in the eye of the law of him if he killed these two women who were a couple. That would totally be something else. So I don't know. Sheree says, I wouldn't say his actions have been very smart. All he's done is draw more attention to himself. Sheree, or it's a coincidence in Moab. Stranger things have happened, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. Sheree, where's David Polides when you need him? Red Code is Brian Schaefer is the most mysterious disappearance ever, in my opinion. Red Code, I'm just going to totally disagree with you. I don't think that Brian Schaefer's is even close. It's not even the most mysterious one we've covered on Unfound, really. But it gets a lot of attention for one particular aspect. He goes into a bar and allegedly never comes out. Other than that, I think his disappearance is fairly straightforward. Jill, he has a YouTube channel. Might be interesting to watch. I heard about that, Jill. I never need David P. Why is that Red Code? to me, Jason Jolkowski's is way more mysterious than Brian Schaefer's. It's obvious, as I said at the time, as I wrote about at the time, when, if you listen to that episode from back in May, when I had Kelly Bruce on the program, other than him not being seen allegedly leaving, which I think is debatable now, not being seen, it's obvious to me that Brian Schaefer was having emotional issues. It's obvious to me that he was having mental health issues. He arrived for his own mother's funeral just a couple weeks before that, late. Had I done that at my mother's funeral in whenever it was, December of 2018, my dad would have shot me. And he would have had good reason to. To me, Brian Schaefer's disappearance plays out like many we've covered. Young man goes out, gets drunk, leaves a bar, disappears. It's like TJ Murray's. We'll be covering a disappearance in the next couple weeks. Very similar to that. There are many disappearances like this. There are many disappearances like Brian's. The only big difference is that the video doesn't show him leaving the bar, which to me is inconsequential. That's to me. That's why. Speaking of Jason Jolkowski, how can we support the families of missing as possible before they burn out? Yeah, I think that's what did happen to Kelly. We'll just keep mentioning him like I do here. Like I try to do. That's why, Jill, I try to compare and contrast disappearances, because it does bring to mind other disappearances that don't get mentioned as much. Everybody knows about Brian Schaefer's. Not as many people know about TJ Murray's. But they're similar. So that's what we can do. I don't know the disappearance of Lars Midtak. I just don't. Charlotte, I heard today the policeman's story about his interaction with them. Ed, I agree. Brian's disappearance is not mysterious to me either. No. All right. So moving on, Maura Murray, if you can believe it, there is news. This is once again another one where everybody finds it mysterious. To me, not that mysterious. All of you by now know the facts. She was having problems in school. She had this going on. She was using somebody else's credit card, and she ended up taking off on this trip from Massachusetts up into New Hampshire, and she wrecked her car, spun it out. Bus driver came by, spoke to her. He went home, called the cops. By the time cops came up, showed up, Mara was gone, never to be seen again. And from that, it's developed a whole cottage industry where people have written books and entire podcasts about all this mysterious stuff regarding Maura Murray. And it could have been this, it could have been that. And what has happened I guess this is not necessarily new news, but 25 miles away on Loon Mountain, which is allegedly where she was headed. I don't know if there's any proof of that. I know he maybe looked at reservations or something. Once again, I'm not an expert on the disappearance. But 25 miles away, recently, human remains were found, and they are still being analyzed. And I've stated on the record that my opinion is that Maura Murray did what most people do when they are drinking and driving and wreck. They run. That's what people do. We just don't hear about it because those people don't go missing. Maura Murray is the one that went missing. People drinking and driving, hitting telephone poles, and running away from the scene of the accident is common, and it's illegal. That's what Maura Murray did. I just can't understand, everything else. And but even I would be surprised if she went 25 miles away. Now, this remains found by accident, which is common, by a construction crew in that area. And I've seen what Maura's sister has had to say about this. I've seen a statement by her father, who has, of course, been front and center all these years. I've never spoken to anybody in the Maura Murray family. We've never attempted to contact anybody in the Maura Murray family. But you should know this. There are 3 men who went missing in the area where Loon Mountain is. One back in the 90s, but I believe the other 2 are much more recent than Mara's disappearance. And so you have to keep that in mind. And as Cherie was telling me, I guess there's another young woman who went missing in that general area. Although Cherie, in her text to me earlier, did not tell me when that was. But so we know of at least 4 people who have gone missing in the Loon Mountain area, much closer than Mara was. That doesn't rule out Mara by any means. But I think what it says is we can't automatically think that it's Mara, because there are other people who have gone missing even in the 21st century in the area who are closer. Not to mention that just because human remains are found does not mean they are contemporary humans. Could be remains. I mean, New Hampshire, it goes back to the, could be Native American remains. It could be early settler remains. There's a lot of different people it could be when you start talking about that part of the United States in an area that's not been developed before. If we were talking about Nevada, might be a little different. If we were talking about Utah, might be a little different. But we start talking about the northeast part of the United States, and between all the Native Americans who lived there and then all the people who came over from Europe and elsewhere and settled there and then moved across the United States, it's a lot of people going through that area. So I have my doubts whether it's Mara Murray, but it certainly has put her disappearance in the news again, in the official news, not the sensationalist news. And we'll see what happens. I'll be surprised if it's Mara. I really would. And even as a guy who believes that she really did run off after that, taking whatever she could, even I would be surprised if she went 25 miles. But Tom Brown might have gone 12 miles, so I guess anything's possible. So that's the Mara Murray news. Red code. Lars Mittak, a normal guy from Germany, appeared to lose his mind while on vacation in Bulgaria. He thought he was being stalked. Yeah, Dow Phillips. Yep, he walked off. I believe he did. And he ran off the airport. I've seen that video. Now that I've seen that video, Red code. He ran off, went over a fence, and was never found. I've seen the video, Red code. Yeah. Yeah. It's not Murray. Cherie says willing to bet on it. I wonder if potentially Brianna Maitland. Once again, Jill, I don't know how close that is to Loon Mountain, so I can't comment. Kathy agrees with Red Code regarding Mara Murray. Maybe it could be Brianna Maitland. Cherie, I was looking for that girl's name earlier. I believe she went missing in 2016. I will have to find the article I read. I think those are going to be her remains. Cherie, certainly if you find that, please post it in here, or if it's after the show, as you know, please post that in the discussion group so everybody can see that. I'd appreciate it. What was I going to... Yeah, regarding Lars Mittak, I didn't know the name Red Code, but I do remember the video of him running off. Just don't know. Panic attack? I know for me, Red Code, I've been more than vocal, although I haven't had any recently. But I've suffered maybe 4 or 5 panic attacks in the last 7 years. And if you aren't ready for them, I mean, you'll do all sorts of crazy stuff. Now, for me, I can now these days kind of feel when they're, and as many would suspect, there is nothing in my life that I should have to panic about. Nothing. But still happen. And, but I've gotten to the point these days where if I feel like if I feel that on, I know what to do to not allow it to happen. But it took me 3 or 4 to figure that out. So for Lars, if that was the first time, if he wasn't on drugs and didn't have any history of mental health problems or anything else, but let's say he had a fear of flying, and that coupled with his first panic attack in his life, because I see him on that video, Red Code, and that's how I feel, what I feel like when I had one. I just want to run, 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 run. Didn't do it. But if I was in a public place, I've been very lucky that when they've happened, it's been at home. But if I was in a mall, if I was at a Starbucks, if I was out on a disc golf course with other guys, who knows what I would do? So that's what goes through my mind when I see that. And if he was running in fear, because your brains, I know for me, when I've talked about it, my panic attacks feel like every thought that I've ever had in the history of my life is trying to jam its way into the forefront of my brain at the same time. That's what it feels like. And they last maybe 15, 20 minutes for me. And the things that were going on at the time that I had them was innocuous. So, that's what I think about when I think of Lars's a disappearance. I think this is also the reason why when I analyze a lot of these disappearances, I think about what I've personally experienced and how you can be totally level-headed 1 second and then the next second feel like your brain is going to implode. And there's no signs that it's going to happen. So that's what I think of, but I'm familiar with that disappearance. I just didn't know the guy's name. The Red Code, it was the first time, but it was the days leading up to it with Lars. He was losing his mind in the days leading up to it. And then maybe he did have some mental health issues. And so now why hasn't he been found, Red Code? I don't know enough about it. The area where he could have been running and everything else. I just don't know enough. Hello, Mama. What's going on? Charlotte says, my oldest daughter used to get panic attacks really bad. I don't know that. I'm sure probably if you give me the facts, Joe, I've heard of it, but the names, obviously we've not covered that disappearance. Valerie, I agree, Ed. She could have gotten upset and said, let me out of the car. So there you go. One more piece of news that I want to cover, and then I want to go back to something else, and then we will go over this Friday's episode. Alex Murdaugh. Man, this thing, all this stuff just gets crazier and crazier and crazier. We now know that he actually paid somebody or hired somebody to shoot him. Remember last week we talked about how he said he was changing a tire, a truck went by, came back the other direction and shot at him and grazed his head. We now know that police have figured out, and the guy is in custody, who Alex hired to shoot him. Now, Alex is saying he did this because he wanted to be shot and killed. So his life insurance policy, which is like $5 million or something, some crazy number, goes to his other son. The question is, then why didn't this guy actually kill him? I mean, if that was the plan, you come up here and shoot me dead. Why was not the shot accurate? I don't know. I haven't seen anything as to did the hitman get cold feet at the last second? I don't know what happened. And now they're also looking at a housekeeper who died at the Alex Murdaugh residence back in 2015. Allegedly, it was a slip and fall thing. There was no autopsy. And there was a wrongful death suit filed in which Alex Murdaugh lost, but he never paid the family the civil suit money. That's a lot of stuff going on around one guy. Wife and son murdered. Housekeeper dies. Slip and fall accident allegedly in 2015. And then he's hiring somebody to kill him and the guy doesn't kill him. In addition, we know Alex Murdaugh has stopped being a lawyer. He's admitted that he was stealing funds from his law firm. We now know that he has a methamphetamine addiction and everything. I'm going to say this, like I said last week. Isn't it clear that Alex Murdaugh somehow was involved in the murdering of his wife and his son? I mean, if he can, if he can hire somebody to shoot himself, he can surely hire somebody else to kill his family for whatever reason. Or he just did it himself. This is crazy. I just, probably one of the more bizarre crime stories that we've gotten in recent memory. But at this point, I would say that Alex Murdaugh certainly had something to do with the murder of his wife and his son. And who knows what was going on with the housekeeper. And, anybody who would be crazy enough to hire somebody to kill himself. This reminds me of the plot of the first Fletch movie. Do you remember that? Wow. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. Jill says, Georgia, random rug went missing. Google Maps has her car on camera. Because the guy heard how much money he could use him in other ways. I'll have to look it up, Jill. It just doesn't ring a bell. So many twists and turns in that family. Sharif says, I think that might be the understatement of the night, Sharif. Nicely done. You've been doing great, Mom. I'm glad to hear it. Jill says the other two, he wanted them to not hurt by his actions. Buster, so he had money to cover his butt about the previous boat accident. Right up there with the Valo Daybell case. You need an organizational chart to keep up with it all. I agree. I just have to believe that Alex Murdaugh had something to do. Murdaugh had something to do with the the murders of his own family. I just don't know what to tell you. All right, I want to go through this. I thought you'd want to know, most importantly, that the third suspect charged in the death of Austin Pivo has decided to plead guilty, and so he's going to be going to jail too. There will be no trial. So all three guys involved in Austin Pivo's disappearance, death, and murder are going to jail for a while. I just want to read this. This came from a justice.gov site. If you're still wondering about what exactly went on that day. According to court records and evidence presented at the trial, on February 3rd, 2018, Austin Pivo, 23 years old, was dropped off by his mother at a residence in the Fort Hall Indian Reservation for work cutting firewood. Testimony at trial showed that Beasley and others were at the residence at the time. Beasley and Pivo had an argument, and Beasley stabbed Pivo twice in the chest with a knife. Beasley and two other men took Pivo's body to an isolated area in the Arbonne Valley. Pivo's family reported him missing, and the Fort Hall Police Department investigated but was unable to locate any information on Pivo's whereabouts. A witness to the events of February 3rd, 2018, came forward to the Fort Hall Police in August 2019. There is no explanation of why it took this long. And reported that Pivo had died on that date, and three men who had been at the house removed his body. The FBI executed a search warrant at the residence and found evidence that Pivo had died there. Just wondered why this hadn't been done before that. One of the men who helped hide the body admitted to his involvement and took FBI agents to the location of Pivo's remains in Arbonne Valley. The agents recovered Pivo's remains along with clothing and other personal items. DNA testing showed that the remains were those of Pivo. So there you go. All three men are going to jail. I have to say, I don't think any of us maybe are surprised that Austin Pivo ended up being deceased, but I do have to tell you that I still am surprised by what happened. But this shows you how quickly these things can happen. Here we are, we're all concentrating on Pivo running into some guy the night before and pulling a knife on him. And it ends up that guy had nothing to do with this at all. Now, what Austin was doing to cause these people to draw knives on him, I don't know. But there's nothing that I've read yet as to why they got in this argument in the first place. And I will tell you that his mother, Austin's mother, has not told me either. But this just shows how quickly it can happen. Guy showing up for work, a few minutes later, he's dead. And other people are covering it up. Horrible. So, but justice is being done. And I think that Austin's family is getting more justice than most of the other families who have been featured on the program where they have no answers at all. Kathy says, Cherie, lock up Lori and Chad and toss the key. Charlotte says, right, Kathy, did you see the story on TV about Chad's kid saying he was framed? It was sickening. Cherie, that's what I say too, Kathy. Okay. One more thing before we get to this Friday's episode. I did the audio newsletter, and it is now posted on the unfoundpodcast.com. And it came out Sunday. That was something I was able to do before my mouth really, 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 really hurt. But I got that done. And so if you're on the email list, the newsletter list already, you've already read your email, I'm sure. But for those of you who are not yet on the email list, that's why you get the newsletter as audio like 10 days later. So if you'd like to get it right away on the first of every month, send me your email at unfoundpodcast@gmail.com, and I will get you on the list. So there you go. One more reason to go to theunfoundpodcast.com and check out our great, informative, beautiful website. I need to thank Natasha for the work that she continues to do there. And you should know, Natasha is not like some website guru. She's had learned a lot of these things on the job, and I really need to thank her. Yes, Linda's saying, reminder to give this video a thumbs up. Yes, thank you, Linda, one more time before we sign off for tonight. Yes, give this video, whether you're watching it live right now or watching it later, please give this video a thumbs up. The Zavlor asked me, have you listened to the new Iron Maiden album? I have, Zavlor. But not as much as you'd think, mainly because of this tooth situation. It just does not pay to listen to any music when you can't concentrate. I've listened to it about 4 times, the Zavlor, and it's good. Hasn't quite grown on me yet. I don't think that I've listened to it enough yet. But I like it. I don't know yet if it's as good as their Book of Souls, which I thought was really strong. But I have listened to it. I have it on Spotify. And now that I'm feeling more like myself again, it will be getting my full attention. And I will surely let everybody know what I think of it. Thank you for reminding me to talk about it. Anytime I can talk about Iron Maiden, I'm going to take that opportunity. All right, let's get to this Friday's episode. The disappearance of Laverda Sorrell, Sorrell. This is the disappearance that's a little bit old. July 4th, 2002. From, well, we're just not sure where she went missing from. There's the story, and then there's what you want to choose to believe. But if you go to the Charlie Project or you go to NamUs, they will give the disappearance location as Fort Defiance, Arizona. However, the disappearance location could be in New Mexico. The guest will be Laverda's sister, Valina Guy. And in this disappearance, Laverda, you should know, is Native American. So we're going to go through some statistics regarding violence concerning Native American women in the United States. We'll talk a little bit about that. And give you some of the statistics. And in the summation at the end, I'm going to give you some of my insight just from a missing persons point of view. I'm not going to get into the politics, all of that and all that other stuff. Not my expertise, but I'm just going to look at those statistics from a missing persons expert's point of view. And we are calling this episode, I guess I'm the one that gave it the name. I'm calling this episode In Defiance. And yes, I guess it's a little bit of a pun, given that the documented last location was Fort Defiance, Arizona, but it gave me a chance to use that as a title and to incorporate that saying in defiance. As you know, we use that. It's an idiom in the English language in regards to these stats regarding violence toward Native American women, the disappearance of Native American women, and all these things. So we get to use that term in regards to these statistics. So once again, this Friday, Laverda Sorrell, July 4th, 2002, from Fort Defiance, Arizona. Her sister, Valina, Guy is the guest. The title of the episode is In Defiance. And given that we talked about Gabby Petito, and I also mentioned Rosemary Rapp and Marion Hurley, Charlene Sleeper, Darlene Sleeper, etc., Laverda's is another one of those kinds of disappearances. She and her husband went out for their 15th wedding anniversary to dinner. And he claims that after that, he dropped her off at her work. She was never seen again. The problem is that Laverda worked in the human resources department for a school district. So why would ever she need to go to work and be dropped off there at like 11 at night? So that is what you will hear on Friday. And that's Spleen Girl says Peace of Mind is your favorite Iron Maiden album. That's a really good one, Spleen. I can't argue with that. I have to tell you that probably my favorite one is Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. I know it's a little more progressive. It's a little less hard and a little more prog rock than those first couple. But don't get me wrong, I love Number of the Beast, and I love the Prisoner song, and a lot of that, you know, all of the older stuff, with as long as Bruce Dickinson's singing. But Seventh Son of a Seventh Son, if you were to look at my playlist of all my Iron Maiden songs, it's the only album that has all of its songs in the playlist. So given that, I have to say that Seventh Son of a Seventh Son is my favorite. And there are some Iron Maiden albums that I really don't care for. I don't care for, the album with Fear of the Dark on it. I just did not get into this, but I love Brave New World, the Brave New World album. I love the Final Frontier album. And I thought Book of Souls was very good. And I'm liking this new one. Just have to listen to it a little bit more. Jasmine, I remember the case of Jill's pumped. Okay. Shree is saying, keep your head on a swivel. Kathy says, I'm glad your pain is gone. Me too, Kathy. Yes. And discussion tonight. Destiny Jackson has been found in the Nevada desert dead. I'm sorry to hear that. Zala, do you have a public playlist on Spotify? I do. If you look up Unfound Iron Maiden podcast playlist, I think it's public. You'll find it. Thanks for asking, Zavlor. Nobody's asked me that before, but yes, I don't know if it's public though, but you can do a search for it. I have to check that. That's all I got. Everybody, thank you for watching tonight. Please give this video a thumbs up. Patreon.com/Unfound /Unfound Podcast, paypal.me/Unfound Podcast, theunfoundpodcast.com. That's all I got. And once again, I told them I would mention it. So once again, Dental Arts on Seminole Boulevard in Pinellas County is where they took care of me yesterday. Thank you very much. Good night.